Part 2 on the historian Josephus. Let's get into it. Josephus is not some extra historian on the side. What we can't forget is how rare his work actually is. Without Josephus, whole chapters of first century history would just not exist. And he didn't just write a few notes. He produced massive works that end up becoming the foundation for how we understand early Judaism and Rome in the East. First is the Jewish War, where he describes the buildup to the revolt, the siege of Jerusalem, and the destruction of the temple. And then he writes the Antiquity of the Jews, a huge 20-volume history that goes from creation all the way to his lifetime. He also wrote Against Apion, which defends the Jewish identity to a skeptical Roman world. And finally, his life, which is basically an autobiography. These books are loaded with names, dates, rulers, rebellions, and events that no one else has recorded. Josephus is the reason we know how Herod the Great ruled, how his sons divided the region when Judea became a Roman province, what sparked the census in 6 AD, and why the Jewish-Roman relationship had been falling apart for decades. He covers up political murders, false prophets, uprisings, corrupt governors, and the constant pressure that shaped the world that Jesus lived in. When people say outside history either challenges or supports some part of the New Testament, 90% of the time they are talking about Josephus. Josephus is not trying to write scripture. He's not preaching. He's explaining. And because he writes like a real historian describing real politics, he records the uncomfortable parts that religious texts might leave out. He tells you when leaders were incompetent, when revolts were brutal, and when Rome reacted with overwhelming force. He gives you a sense of fear, tension, trauma that makes the New Testament feel more like an occupied territory and less like a quiet religious setting. Josephus is not perfect, but he is indispensable. His books are the bridge between the Gospels, archaeology, and Roman history. If you care about what actually happened in the first century, he is unavoidable. He's basically the last surviving voice of a world that Rome almost erased. So tap back in for part 3. When it drops, we'll go further in depth on Josephus. Like always, drop down in the comments, tell me what you think, and I'll be back with more ancient history later.